and who basically need to overcome their life challenges. We are not providing medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require that type of assistance, we recommend you contact a medical professional immediately. If you have questions or concerned about today's episode or any Voice of Men 360 content, please email us at info@voiceofmen360.org. Today's special guest is Nathan Spiteri. He's a filmmaker, actor, and writer. He also is a sexual abuse survivor, activist, and advocate. He was born in Canberra, Australia. Nathan was sexually abused for 5 years as a child, threatened with his life and that of his family. He turned to drugs, violence, and sex as a result to survive. Having worked as an actor in Model Australia, Nathan moved to New York to pursue acting and to get away from his past. However, he fell deeper into depression and addictions before hitting rock bottom. Nathan finally told someone of his past for his first time in 25 years and finally came out the other side through intense therapy. Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics, Sex Anonymous. He has chosen to use his painful path to help others, aligning himself with organizations both in Australia and the US to raise awareness, educate people, and act as an advocate for sexual abuse. If anything that's discussed today causes any traumatic triggers for you, please contact a counselor or let us know if you're not sure. We do have those type of resources. So without further ado, I welcome Nathan today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, I'm happy you're here. We're going to have very interesting conversation, and we're going to be discussing a book that Nathan has published called Toy Cars. We'll get into the reason he came up with that title in a little while, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your interesting life. It's far from boring. There's a lot of exciting things that have happened, well worthy of a blockbuster movie. So we need to go through that for the first half an hour. In the second half, we'll discuss many of the things that Nathan has done to overcome the past to the point that he is now championing other people and contributing to the rest of the world and showing how special of a man he is that God has created here to help others. So I admire and respect your courage and your boldness to be able to speak to the public, because this is a very difficult issue to bring up. Many people that have suffered what you have suffered would be extremely fearful to bring this out in the open. And this has been very troubling, probably the most difficult interview I prepared for. So I again urge those that have challenges listening to what we talk about to please get counseling and to overcome it to the point that you can help others. So please tell us a little bit about what actually happened in your past and see what we can do to learn from it and grow through this.
Sure. Yes. Again, thank you for having me. So I grew up in Canberra, which is the capital of Australia, but I grew up in a small little town, literally just outside of Canberra. Population of that town was about 20,000 people at the time. We're talking mid-'80s, when the summertime, mid-'80s, when, you know, your parents would send you out and say, don't come home until it's nighttime, or don't come home till 6 p.m. for dinner. So me and my sister, as we'd done plenty of times before, we rode our bikes down to the local swimming pool, where literally the whole town would gather in the summertime. So we were there playing with friends. My sister left early to go and hang out with her friends. I stayed to the very end. I literally stayed until the place closed. As the place closed, I walked into the change rooms just to get changed and have a quick little shower and everything. There was literally no one there. A man followed me into the shower and raped me in the shower. The first words he said to me was that if I tell anyone, he'll kill me and kill my family. So as an 8-year-old back in the 80s, you believe that. You know, we're talking when there was no access to mobile phones, to organizations, charities, hotlines that we have today. So literally straight away, the grooming and the manipulation started with him telling me that this is what I wanted, that my parents wanted this to happen, that I was looking at him at the pool, I picked him up at the pool, that he loves me, I love him, that everyone else hates me. You know, just the classic grooming, manipulation kind of words. The relationship started out very violent. He would beat me up and bash me and throw me against the wall and do what he did to me. It turned, through his grooming manipulation, turned into a Stockholm syndrome type relationship where I started feeling love for this man. I pushed my family away. I didn't want to be with them. I wanted to be with him, to the point where I would ride my bike to his house in the hopes of seeing him. knowing all too well what was going to happen to me, knowing all too well what he was going to do, the violence, the hurt, the crying, everything that was going on.
What age were you when this happened?
8 years old. At 8 years old. So at 12 to 13 years old, I say he abandoned me because he disappeared out of my life. And I wanted him. So he abandoned me. So for about 2 years after that, I was lost. I didn't know who I was, where I was, who I belonged with. Was I gay? Was I straight? He told me how special I was. I'd pushed my family away, my friends. He was the only one I wanted to be with, but he was gone. So I was very lost. Depression had hit me. I was stealing my dad's smokes and cigarettes and using them as a vice to kind of just escape life. And then from about 15 years old, I grew up near an industrial part of Canberra. So there are a lot of warehouses there, but there are also a lot of cruise lounges and gay clubs and stuff. So I would ride my bike to these clubs and cruise lounges. I would sneak in and I would do what I did with these men again. I would let them rape me and have their way with me. But at the end of it, I would bash them, beat them up, rob them. And that was my FU to the world. That was my way of getting my power back, my way of feeling alive, my way of it was a power game, my way of getting power. At my late teens, I discovered drugs. So lots and lots of drugs, lots of partying, lots of sex, everything to numb the pain, to hide how I was feeling. Doing acting and modeling in Australia. I let's fast forward. I got invited to New York. Moved to New York thinking I could get away from it all. I could escape my life there, start over. But being New York, I had access to everything, so much more than I did in Australia. The drugs were cheaper. The sex was easy to get. The violence was there. I started shooting up heroin. I started smoking crack. I was drinking every day, cocaine every day. Hit my rock bottom, tried killing myself a few times. And when I hit my rock bottom, I almost killed someone else in the process. As a result of that, I needed to tell someone. I was so lost and just in a bad place. So after 25 years of not telling a soul, I finally told my best friend, who I went to acting school with here, and she now lives up in Toronto. We went to a cafe and I told her, and through that, she helped me get therapy. She helped me find a therapist. So my therapist was amazing. I did therapy with her. She helped me get into a group therapy class or session, as you could say, rehab, AA, narcotics, sex anonymous, but I dropped the sex and narcotics and just stuck with the AA because that kind of encompassed all of them. And that started about 12 years ago. So after...
What I wanted to ask is, you said some interesting comments on page 7, for example. You said when someone is abused sexually, physically, mentally, emotionally, they don't just move on with life. There's more to it than that. How can you elaborate a little bit that? There's deep trauma.
Of course, there's deep trauma. So, what happened to me, I can't have all this stuff happen to me and then I just move on with life like it doesn't happen. I have deep-seated trauma in me now, and it's a part of me. Like when people say to you, move on and just get over it and live your life and do what you need to do to survive. But what people don't understand is the trauma that happened to me is now a part of me. It's a part of my DNA. It's a part of who I am. It's never going away. It's about working my way through it. It's about understanding. It's about evolving through it, evolving with it. It's about educating myself so I know what I went through, understanding what I went through, understanding my relationship with this man, understanding my relationship with my parents, my brothers, my sister, friends, with men in general, with females. So yes, when you have trauma, and trauma is all relative. It's all about how you deal with your trauma. So my trauma was being sexually abused, being raped, lots of addictions, abuse. So it's not just about, okay, this has happened, now it's time to move on. It's about, okay, this has happened, but I need to understand this in order to survive. I need to do the work on myself in order to survive so I can move forward, so I can have a healthy relationship with my parents, with a sexual partner, with whoever it is in life, work, friendship, life in general. So yeah, in order to move forward, in order to get through this trauma, you need to work on it. You need to work through it.
That the trauma that you are talking about, from what I read in your book, seemed to be very intense. On page 49, you said, I was exhausted, beat up, and ripped to shreds like I had just gone 10 rounds with Mike Tyson. And it depends on which round you went. He even bit somebody's ear off. So hopefully it wasn't in that round that you got your ear bit off.
I know.
But I'm making fun of it. But I'm looking at you went through some pretty intense trauma, so I can really understand to a certain degree, not completely, because your trauma is your trauma, is to the intensity of the high anxiety and stress and fear that you must have gone through, especially starting off at 8 and then for 4 or 5 years or more that you experienced this crazy evilness.
Yeah. So it was intense trauma. It was very heavy. It was very, like I said, I would go to his house in the beginning and he would shove me against the wall. He would choke me out to the point where I'd pee my pants. He would beat me about the head. And then he would just, throw me on the couch and rape me. And he would never talk to me. He would never offer me any drinks or anything. It was not a nice man. But again, towards the end of that relationship, through the Stockholm syndrome, through me having feelings for this man, he would talk to me. He would offer me a glass of water or some food or some sweets or whatever you want to call it. He would put his arm around me and take me into the bedroom this time instead of just doing it on the couch. But throughout all that, there was a grooming them and there was a manipulation. There was the threats that, if I go to the police, I'm going to be the one who gets into trouble, not him. I'm going to be the one who goes to jail, not him. I'm going to be the one who will never see him again because I'm a bad person. He's the good person. So, he would do a lot of bad things to me. And as a result of that, as a result of me not doing the work on myself, me not, understanding what happened to me not talking about it for 25 years, the hurt he put onto me, I then inflicted onto others because that is all I knew. That is how I knew to survive. That is what I needed to do to survive. So, yeah, in order for me to live and to survive, I had to do some terrible things myself.
I noticed when I was reading your book, it's quite an interesting book, to say the least, and a lot of intense emotions. So someone really just needs to be prepared to face their trauma to be able to go through it. And even then, there's some challenging things, especially page 50. You said, do they think I'm a bad little boy? Do Janice and Peter not like me too? That's your brother and sister.
Yes, sir.
Do they think I'm a liar? I'm not playing with them as much as I normally would. So I guess the man must be right. So you had self-sabotaging thoughts.
Absolutely.
They weren't pleasant thoughts. And then page 66 later, is this what my life is supposed to be like? Am I supposed to feel love for this man? Am I supposed to care for him more than I do my parents? So you must have been very confused what the definition of like is, definition of love, definition of care and understanding, compassion. I'm sure those words were very foreign to you. Do you feel that that is a reason that it took you 25 years to open up? What do you feel took so long for you to realize I need to do something? Or were you just not sure where to go, what to do, how to handle it?
Bit of everything. I was very confused. I was very lost. Like I said, when he abandoned me through his grooming, his manipulation, his words, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't know who I belonged with. And it was troubling. It was hard. It was confusing. It was depressing. And I just took myself away from everyone else and would live in my parents' bedroom and watch TV and movies. And that was where my love for TV and film came about. Or I would sit in my room and play with my toy cars. Or I would just be on my own, so I didn't have to deal with anyone, because that was my safe place, being on my own. And I didn't know where I belonged. I was lost. I was confused. I was hurt. I felt abandoned by this man, and I loved him, or I thought it was love. Um, and in order to protect myself, in order to protect my family, I had to push them away, because I thought that he was going to hurt me or hurt them. I didn't want them to know, because I didn't want to be in trouble, because I did self-sabotage. I self-sabotaged myself till I came out about this for 25 years, 30 years. Everything that went well for me, everything that happened to me, I made sure it didn't. When it comes to relationships or a new girlfriend or a new job, a new acting gig, I did what I needed to do to make sure it didn't work out.
I see. I understand. So, did you ever question wondering why this man is acting in this way, to understand his behavior, what accounts for this? Because you did eventually go to his house and he was no longer there. You met his wife and daughter, and you were told that he's not coming back. So, did you ever try and decipher and determine in your own mind what is accounting for this man's behavior, how he acts and how he treats me, and what is going on?
I guess I didn't realize at the time, I didn't know what he was doing was wrong. Again, I think through his words, he told me how special I was. He would tell me how lucky I was. He would tell me I was one of the special boys, and everyone else is missing out. So for me, I just thought I was special. So when he did disappear, I did question it. I did. Well, why have you gone? Where are you? Why are you not here with me? You said we were going to be together forever. You told me that you loved me. You told me that you needed me, and that I needed you. So, when I did go to his house to find him, and then I found his wife and his daughter there, and they told me that I was never going to see him again, I ran away as fast as I could, because I didn't want her to know my relationship with this man. She asked me if what he did to me and what my relationship was like with this man. So I ran away. I was confused, and that's when the real depression started hitting, and the soothing with drugs, with alcohol, with violence, with sex, with what I needed to do to survive. And I kept it a secret, because for my whole life I pushed it so far down. I was still, I guess, maybe still had it in my head that he was going to kill me, that I was going to get in trouble, that I was going to go to jail, that my parents were going to get hurt, that it was all my fault. So that's why I didn't come out about it. That's why I didn't talk about it. That's why I was so confused and unable to tell anyone.
So would you say all those methods of coping were effective or not effective?
That's a tough one. That's six of one, half a dozen of the other. Yes, it was effective, because it made me survive, but then at the same time, it almost killed me. And it made me almost kill other people and hurt other people. So was it effective? I'm here today, I'm talking to you today, and I'm in a great place today, but I wouldn't recommend doing that to anyone. I wouldn't recommend anyone doing that, sorry. But I did it because I was unaware. I wasn't educated on it. I needed to do what I needed to do to survive. So was it effective? Yeah, it was effective for me. It did get me through the dark times, through the heavy times, through the times when I wanted to kill myself. If I didn't do those things, I'd probably be dead.
So the drugs, the alcohol, the excessive sex, the violence were your ways of coping, because
Yes.
that's all you knew at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't have a counseling center down the road that says sexual abuse counselor center and made it public. It was, would you say you were living in shame and guilt and fear and suffering and just terror? Would you
All of
say
that.
the word
All of that.
terror would describe how you lived?
Terror, shame, self-hatred. And there probably were, and I'm sure there were counselors, there were therapists, there were places down the road where I could have gone to, where I could have seen people, where I could have spoken to people. But again, I had pushed it down. I promised myself that I would never, ever tell a soul. And that's how it was going to be. So in order for me to not tell a soul, I needed to act out. I needed to do these other things. So
was the reason you weren't going to tell a soul because he threatened your life and your family's life if you did tell anyone?
exactly that. And then the
you know,
shame, the fear. Obviously there was fear there, but there was shame. There was confusion. There was hatred. I hated myself. I hated who I was. I hated my body. I hated everything about me. So in order just to keep it quiet and not talk about it, not think about it, and not deal with it, I did what I did.
And so you did indicate a few minutes ago about toy cars. So you have a title named Toy Cars. Can you elaborate a little bit for our audience to tell us how you came up with that title?
Sure. Toy Cars came about because as a child, I had about, I don't know, 30, 40 toy cars, little matchbox cars, that I would play with. I had a mat, and I talk about in the book, a mat where the city is set out on the mat. So I would just sit there for hours and play with these cars on this mat. And the reason why I called it Toy Cars is because one of the gifts, or literally only physical gift this man gave me, was a toy car, was a little tow truck. So I would play with this tow truck and my cars and act out real life scenarios with these cars. The toy truck was the man. I was this beaten up, shitty little toy car that was all broken and the wheels wouldn't turn and it was scratched. And I would play out scenarios on the mat with these toy cars. So, Toy Cars was very fitting. And I spoke to one of my ex-girlfriends, and it's funny because the title was the hardest thing to come up with. And my ex at the time, she was the one who said Toy Cars. And I'm like, wow, yes, definitely. There it is. It was right there. It was sitting in front of my face, but I couldn't find it. So she came up with the title, and it worked.
So that was one of your methods of coping, is playing with the cars. And when you were playing with the cars, were your brother and sister Janice or Peter there, or were you doing this by yourself?
Janice was never really there because she was 2-3 years older than me. So, she was hanging out with her girlfriends or playing with dolls or whatever she was doing, or, doing girl stuff. My brother, he's 2 years younger than me. He may have been there once or twice, but for the majority, it was just me. For the majority, it was just me playing with my toy cars alone where I wanted to be. So I didn't have to talk to anyone. I didn't have to deal with anyone. I didn't have to see anyone. I just wanted it to be me and my cars, and that's where I felt most comfortable.
So looking back, hypothetically, if you were a father and you saw your son playing with toy cars by himself all the time, would that be a red flag, or do you think that would be a healthy thing he's doing?
It would be it depends. It depends on what he was doing before that. If he was an extrovert and playing with friends and out there and doing his thing and the life of the party, and then all of a sudden he sat alone and he didn't want to see anyone anymore, didn't want to talk to anyone anymore, and became an introvert and just wanted to play with his toy cars, I would question it. But then again, if that's all he wanted to do his whole life and didn't want to see anyone, didn't want to have friends, I would also question it and just ask what was wrong. Ask, why he didn't want to see his friends. Ask why he didn't want to play with other kids. And I think the most important thing as adults is to be able to communicate with our children. And I talk a lot about this in the book, is that we need to communicate with our kids. We need to have a healthy, open relationship with our children where we can ask them anything and where they can feel safe, where they can feel believed, where they know that it's not their fault, that they're not going to get in trouble if something has happened. If a man or if a woman has touched them, if they feel uncomfortable, they're not going to get in trouble with the police. They're going to be believed. And And I think that's the problem. We don't do that with our kids. And if the kids are like myself, if the kids are told, if you tell anyone I'll kill you, you'll kill your family, you'll never be believed, your parents are going to hate you, this is what you want. If they are being told that, and as parents, as guardians, as school teachers, as whoever it is, we don't communicate with our children, we don't tell them it's going to be okay, it's not your fault, you are not going to get in trouble here, then that's where the problem lies.
Well, I'd like to take a break for a few minutes just to provide a few more announcements, and then we're going to pick this up again in a few minutes with some good news, because this sounds like a horrific horror movie, but there are some details of some good news and hope, or Nathan wouldn't be here. So I'm very grateful that he's here, and I admire and respect him. I think he's a great guy. So hopefully we continue with him and more events that we have. So I wanted to mention we have some interesting things coming up, especially next Saturday. We have a barbecue in London. So if we have the slide where the address, there it is, the annual picnic. It's July 24th, 10 to 3 o'clock, Springbank Park, Area J. Hey, that's a great letter, J after Joe. 1085 Commissioners Row West, London, Ontario. So I recommend attending. You don't need to bring anything except yourself and your family, and we'll have a chance to get to know each other, build some friends, and see what we can do to provide encouragement, support, and bring awareness to Voice of Men 360. We do have some other shows that are happening on a regular basis. Open Up, Sharing Your Life Journey. It's a live talk show on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have Billy. It's a Tamil live talk show on Sundays at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have monthly webinars first Saturday of every month at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A monthly special show, The Unspoken Tears. It's the second Saturday every month from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The focus is domestic violence against men, bullying, male sexual abuse, traumas, porn addiction, human trafficking. And Author Circle, which I'm hosting regularly. Podcasts. All of our shows are available on 6 platforms, including iPhone, Google Play, and so on. And we also have monthly men's group meeting only for men by men. And it's a peer support group. I'm involved with that as well. Tuesdays every 2 weeks from 6 to 7:30 through Zoom. And we also have Pass the Talking Stick. It's an Indigenous peer-to-peer support group. Fourth Friday of every Monday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. through Zoom. So there are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups. All walks of life can participate in any of our shows. If you want to be a guest at any of our shows or willing to be part of our organization, help us directly or indirectly, please reach out to us. We'd love to work with individuals, professionals, experts, community organizations, associations, corporations, government officials, and businesses. Our phone number is 437-889-8329. Email address is info@voiceofmen360.org. Website is voiceofmen360.org. You can find us on all social media, and we have a Facebook group, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. We're everywhere. So let's continue and bring Nathan back. And here's some good news as to how did you get through all of this? Give us some steps from the book I read. You had a friend, Sam, that you told things, 2 good friends, Sam and Kirsten, but you did meet another girl, and I'm trying to get the story straight. Was it Julie that introduced you to Robin, your therapist? Oh,
Julie was, am I muted?
No, you're okay now. You're okay.
I'm okay.
Now.
Sorry.
No.
Yep. No, Sam is the one that introduced me to my therapist.
Okay.
Julie is my girlfriend who I met shortly after therapy, and I experienced a lot of things with Julie. But Sam was my best friend who I went to acting school with here. And as I said earlier, I'd hit rock bottom. I almost killed someone. I was in a bad place. It was just after my birthday. We went to a cafe in the West Village, and it was like a movie. We sat in the middle table of the cafe. We were surrounded by people. The cafe was full, and she was done with me. She didn't want to be my friend anymore because I was just a mess. I was all over the place, and she didn't want to deal with it. So she was pretty much there to tell me that she didn't want to be my friend, that she was going to drop me. And as she was getting up to leave, I blurted it out for the first time in 25 years. I was raped as a kid. And she sat down, I started crying, and I kind of just went through the story and told her about that. I didn't tell her about the sex and the violence with men. I wasn't ready for that, but I told her about the drugs. I told her about being raped. Through that, um, it was crazy. I guess I was talking really loud and I was crying, and literally all the tables around us had stopped their conversation and were just watching us and eyes on us. And it was surreal. But through that, she helped me find a therapist, helped me find Robin, and I was in therapy with Robin for quite a while, and did group therapy with Robin, and went to rehab, and she introduced me into AA. And if I can say it, therapy saved my life. Therapy did. And group therapy as well, AA, of course, as well. But just being there, being able to finally open up and talk to someone, and learn about my relationship with this man, learn about my relationship with my parents, my siblings, my relationship with girlfriends and with men, it helped me understand who I was, and it brought me to where I am today. And I learned some very, very important lessons in therapy. And one of the most important things was, my therapist asked me if I could go back today and speak to my 8-year-old self, what would I tell him? And I would and ah about it, and I was lost. And my therapist, she was a tough woman, and she would kick my ass if I wasn't there, and she would really push me to get to the answers. And it finally hit me. It finally come to me that if I could speak to my 8-year-old self, I would tell him it wasn't your fault, because throughout my life, it was my fault. Self-sabotage, shame, anger, toxic masculinity, everything I believed was my fault, and I would sabotage it all. So once I realized it wasn't my fault, the weight, the layers started peeling off me, and I was able to understand. I was able to work through it. I was able to do the work that I needed to do to understand where I was in the world, who I was in the world, my relationship with the world, with people. So there were many things. One of the other things that was a big thing for me was, my therapist told me to write a letter to my abuser and do what I want with it. Give it to him, take it to my grave, give it to my parents, to my family, to my partner, whoever it is, do what I want to do with it, burn it, whatever it was. To finally tell this man that I had my power back. He didn't own me anymore. He didn't have my power anymore. So that was a big thing that I learned. And I wrote this letter when I went back to Australia for a visit. I went down to the local area where he used to live, and the house is no longer there. And so I went to the park, and I found his car at home, still with all my other cars. I wrote the letter. I took the car. I went down to the local park. I sat with it for a while and just thought about life and where I was and my journey. And I burnt the letter. I didn't need to give it to anyone. This man is now dead, so I couldn't give it to him anyway. Other things I learned in therapy was in order for me to move forward, in order for me to get through my anger, my hatred with myself, with life, with people, I had to forgive. Like, if I didn't forgive myself, if I didn't go some way to forgiving this man, I would be stuck where I was. I wouldn't be able to move forward. So that was a big, big lesson for me, was learning to forgive. And it's tough and it's hard. And, and I say this openly and honestly, I would love to have sat with this man. I would have loved to have asked questions. Why me? Did it happen to him? Many things I would have loved to have asked this man, but then I would have taken a baseball bat and I would have killed him. And I can say that not because of what he did to me, just so he can't do it to anyone else, because what he's done to me, I've come to peace with. What happened to me happened for a reason. The reason why it happened to me is to tell my story, is to educate the world, is to save lives now. Because these abusers, once they do it to one kid, they do it to many. Another thing I learned was, the difference between toxic masculinity and masculinity. Masculinity is when you're able to open up, be vulnerable, talk, cry, communicate, show how you feel, communicate about how you feel, express how you feel and what's going on in your life, and also listen to other people. Whereas toxic masculinity is where we are, as men, taught at a young age to be strong. We don't cry. We're told to get over it, to move forward, to suppress everything. And, if we do that, that's when it builds and builds and builds and builds to the point where we lose it, and we act out, we do something bad, we beat someone up, we kill someone, we bash our partners, we whatever it is. So there were many things I learned throughout my journey, and it's a continuous thing. It's not okay, I went to therapy, I'm done with it now, I can move forward. It's an ever evolving thing, it's an ever growing thing, and I learn things every single day. So it's not like, okay, I've done the work, it's time to move on. It's I've done the work, but it's time to continue doing the work.
So would you say that you resolved most of the negative emotions or trauma that you've had to deal with, or do you think there's still some you need to deal with?
Um, I think I've resolved 95% of it. I do, but it's never going to be a 100%. I'm done, I'm healed. I still get triggered by things, and they hit me. But what I do when that happens is I let these things hit me. I let them hit my body, see where they land on my body, and see what they do to me. And then I evolve with it. I understand it. I grow through it. I educate myself through it so that when it happens again, I know what to do. I don't let it hit my body and then push it away straight away and pretend nothing happened and pretend everything is fine, because it's going to continue to hit my body. It's going to continue to do these things to me, to the point again where it's just going to build and build and build until I lose it. So I'm almost there. I'm in a great place mentally, emotionally. I know who I am, but I still get triggered. I still suffer my depression. I still have good and bad days. We all do, no matter our trauma. So
It sounds like you've had some good lessons, and especially I like what was brought out in page 290. Your therapist told you the difference between happiness and joy. Do you remember what she said there?
Absolutely. So joy or happiness is I'm happy now talking to you. Happiness is if I'm going to go outside and buy a new car, or I got a new job, or I got a promotion, or I met a girl. That makes me happy. But joy comes from within. Joy is an emotion that is true from within, and I'm able to feel that emotion and bring that to life and share that emotion with other people and share it with myself and live it and feel it. Whereas happiness is over in a minute, whereas joy is an ever evolving thing. I feel joy. I want to feel joy. And for me, the most important thing in my life now is peace, is love, and is feeling joy. I don't need, whether I make $20 million a year, whether I make $20,000 a year, that's all irrelevant. It's about finding peace. It's about finding joy in my life, and it's about finding love.
So the definitions of all those now versus back when you were a boy, you didn't really know. From what I understand, you were quite confused.
Yeah. I had no idea of love, and I had no idea of joy or happiness or peace. All I knew was confusion and hurt and anger and manipulation and lies.
Yeah, it's unfortunate you were in the wrong place, the wrong time.
The wrong place, wrong time, exactly.
And I found it interesting. You talked about an article that was released in an Australian paper on page 342 of your book, that there was many comments of people said that they were really benefiting from that
Absolutely.
It showed immense courage.
Yeah.
And so you talked, from what I could understand, about your experiences and how you were able to overcome.
So I have a very good friend who was a reporter and an editor at one of the major newspapers in Australia. She knew about my story, and she asked if she can write a story about me. And I was umming and ahhing about it, but I said yes. And I told my parents it was going to happen. And my parents asked if it could be if it cannot include my name or my picture or photos of me. But if we did that, it would have just been a made up story that the editor wrote. So this article came out in the Halloween weekend of 2018 in Australia. And it was about my story. It was about everything. It was acting out. It was the drugs. It was the violence. It was the sex. It was the rape. It was the whole lot. And I was back in New York when it happened. So I turned my phone off because I didn't want to deal with it. So it came out the Sunday morning in Australia, which was Saturday afternoon here. I turned my phone off because I started receiving messages after messages, and I couldn't handle it. I didn't want to handle it. I woke up the next morning, put my phone on. I had over 100 messages and emails and Instagram and whatnot from people saying how courageous I was, how amazing I was, and how, you know, I was doing the right thing. I had so many people read the article and say the same thing happened to them in our hometown, or it happened to them in Canberra or somewhere in Australia. I had many people tell me that I'd given them the courage now to tell their story. I'd given them the courage to find peace, to move forward, to get closure. I'd saved their lives. So, you know, through this one article that came out about me in Australia, since then, which is 3-4 years ago now, I've had thousands of people reach out to me. The article has had over 1 million hits. Through the article, a publishing house in Australia reached out to me and told me to write my memoir, which is where we are today with Toy Cars. And it was literally the start of this journey. It was something I never wanted to do. I never wanted to talk about this. I never wanted to be an ambassador. I never wanted to be an advocate and be the guy who's going to be out there so open and publicly about this. But I now understand my role in the world. I understand what happened to me. And for me now, it's about giving back. It's about educating the world. It's about being a voice for the voiceless. It's about letting these victims become survivors now, because that's what they are. You know, to go from tragedy to triumph. So I understand my purpose, and, you know, people always tell me if I regret anything. And yes, of course I regret things in life, because I've done a lot of bad things and I've hurt people, and, you know, I haven't had a great life, but I wouldn't change a thing, because if I changed one little thing, I wouldn't be here sitting here with you. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't be saying these words. So, you know, I understand my purpose. I understand what happened to me, and it's about now giving back and sharing my story and getting it out there, because it's still such a taboo subject, and people don't want to know about it. They don't want to educate themselves on it, because it is harsh. It is tough. So, you know, if I could be a voice, if I could be that first one to get through that door and then open the door for thousands of people behind me, then so be it.
Well, it's very interesting. Your pain has now become your purpose. And it reminds me of a book. I actually have a copy of it. I got it a few months ago by a very famous pastor of a church in California, Robert Schuller, Crystal Cathedral. He wrote a book called Turn Your Scars into Stars and Your Hurts into Halos. And you also mentioned page 350 that hurt people. People that are hurting inside have that hurt, so they're going to hurt other people, because that's what they feel.
That's what we know. That's what we feel. That's what we know. And it's funny. Yes, I'd heard that saying years and years ago, and it just resonated with me. And I'm like, wow, that is me. I am hurting, and I just want to hurt people, because that's all I know. Not that I want to hurt people, but I continue to hurt people, because that's all I know how to do it, how to live, how to survive. And then my editor of this book, who was an amazing woman, or not the editor, the publisher, sorry, I should say the publisher. When I sent her that quote, hurt people, she replied back to me. And I don't know if she made this up or where it came from, but everyone I've spoken to hadn't heard it. But she said, healed people heal people. So, you know, I'm healing. I'm not healed, I'm healing. But now my purpose is to heal other people, is to help other people, is to educate people on this subject.
Well, the interesting thing is the book has got 360 pages. We have enough information to do a 8-hour seminar. Perhaps we can have you come back again sometime. Our time is dwindling, because we do our utmost to keep on schedule for an hour. But I just want to highlight a few of the other things that you're involved with from my notes here. You're involved in some other charities, organization, both Australia, United States, and Global Ambassador for Child Liberation Foundation. Men's Link, it's an organization in Australia to help young men between 10 and 25, and Survivors and Mates Support Network. And you're also an actor, so we'll have to find out what movies you're in or what you're involved with, so we can watch and critique it. And you're also in June 2019 the keynote speaker of a 7th annual Paths to Healing conference in Madison, Wisconsin. So you're definitely not just home twiddling your thumbs, feeling sorry for yourself. You've now become an activist to help others. And there's lots I can read, but this would bring us way over time. And I like the one quote near the end of the book says, I'm no longer a victim. I'm a survivor, and I will continue to survive, to evolve, to educate, to love, and thrive. I love those words, very powerful. You said you've learned from your past. I've resolved to move forward, integrating these lessons into my new life so that I may create a better world for myself and for others. I just love you to comment a little bit on some of the areas where you've helped and learned so deeply that you're now helping others. It's a big difference when people say, I'm going to get through this. No, get through it so deep so you can help others. So you could do a course or seminar for thousands of people, and that's what you're doing. So I really like you. I think you have a lot of amazing qualities, that you're a fighter, not just you were a fighter before, but now you're a fighter in a positive direction to help others. And that is so much more worthy of celebrating, that you're in a position that you're championing others and pulling the belong side of you and helping them, contributing to their healing. So that deserves a tremendous amount of recognition. And going from not liking yourself now to realizing that you have liking ability for yourself, love inside, that you're now helping. So loving people can love others. Just like we said, hurt people, healing people, heal people, loving people that have love inside can now love others. So that's amazing. So send us off with a few words of where some people can go for help. If anything that you said today triggers something, if anything that you said today that you could, if you knew there was 100,000 people watching right now, what could you say to them to give them some hope and recognition? And what are some advice you can share for parents of many young men today?
I think the most important thing is to surround yourself with the right people. Surround yourself with people who you know are going to trust you, who are going to believe you, who are going to love you, who are going to support you, so that if you do have something wrong, because it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to be down. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to be lost in life. It's okay to be feeling these things. To go and speak to the people you love, the people you trust, the people you know who are going to be there to support you. There are so many now. There are so many avenues, therapists, counselors, charities, organizations you can approach and speak to. And I know that first step is always the hardest. But once you get through that first step, once you take that first step, it does get easier. As hard as it's going to be for the first few months, the first year, the first couple of years, it does get easier. So take that first step, because it will get easier. And if anything, if there's anything as parents that we can say to our children is, and I truly believe this, as parents, we need to tell our kids at a very young age that their penis is called a penis, their vagina is called a vagina. It belongs to them. No one else is allowed to touch it. No one's allowed to play with it. We don't give it nicknames. We don't make jokes about it, because if we do that, then if some man or some woman comes up and plays with it, or makes jokes about it, or makes light of it, then these kids think it's normal. So we need to let these kids know that it belongs to them. It doesn't belong to anyone else, that they're going to be believed, that it's not their fault, that they can go to the police, they can go to their school teacher, they can speak to their parents, or, sometimes it is the parents who are abusing these kids, that there are other avenues that they can seek help from. And for adults today, people like myself who are going through it, who have never been able to come out about it, or who have come out about it, but who are really suffering and finding it hard. And this is one big thing that I do is just breathe. Take those deep breaths and breathe, because you're going to get back into your body. You're going to ground yourself. You're going to be able to just sit with it and understand it and evolve through it and educate yourself on it. Whereas if you're up and you're panicking and you're stressed and everything else, it's just going to hit you more and more. So when you are in those places, just sit, breathe, take those deep breaths, bring the body back down, ground yourself, calm yourself, and try and relax. And again, just surround yourself with the right people, speak to the right people who are going to believe, who are going to trust, who are going to understand, and who are just going to sit there and listen. Because for the majority, all we want are people just to sit there and listen, so we can tell them how we feel and what we need in our life, and what is going on at that time. So just be aware of who you are, what's going on with you, and express that.
Is there a way that if someone wanted to contact you that they could reach you?
I guess the best way to follow up with me and to I guess watch what I'm doing and where I'm at in the world is on Instagram. That's the one I'm on the most, and it's just Nathan Spiteri. And I'm sure they can get my name through this link and through watching this. Through Instagram, I'm on Facebook as well, but I am on Instagram the most. Just reach out on there, follow me on that, and then we can go from there. Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful that you took time out of your busy schedule. And I forgot to ask, are there some movies that you're in that we could have a look and see some of
At
your
the
amazing
moment,
work?
I've done a lot of theater, so it was mainly theater at the moment, but I'm writing a lot of things at the moment that are going to be coming out soon. So I will keep everyone posted on what's going on. And I've done a lot of independent movies in the past, but at the moment, just I'm doing a lot of writing. Things are going to be coming out later this year and early next year. So if you, get on my Instagram and stuff, you'll be able to see when and where and what it is and everything else. So lots of exciting things coming up.
Well, as I said, we could probably be on here at least 8 to 10 hours, but we try to be concise and get to the point. And we're hoping that if people follow some of your ideas and intently or get your book, Toy Cars, that they can get some ideas to expedite the healing, because it's sad when it took you 25 years. But the good news now, you're in a process of helping others to speed up their healing and to make it very effective. So I'm very grateful you were here. It's been an awesome experience, and we hope to continue the friendship. And I'll be keeping you in my prayers that God will continue to guide you and protect you and bless you, and that awesome things will happen. So thanks for everyone joining us today, and look forward to our upcoming episodes. And if you can make it, Nathan, come to our picnic next Saturday. And we'd like to invite, it's only, I think, probably a 3-hour drive. So it's not that far. So
Right.
Let's see who can make it. And it's great, again, having you here. So everybody have a wonderful Saturday. The weather's out wonderful. I had a walk early this morning at 6 o'clock, water my garden. So it's beautiful weather. Let's enjoy ourselves today. God bless everybody.
God bless. Thank you so much.